Well, good evening, everyone. It is 7:00 p.m. and welcome to the Tuesday, July 13th edition of Mapleton Township Council meeting. We were missing one council member, but he will be a little bit late tonight getting on, so we will start without him. I just remind everyone that tonight and every night that we're online, the meeting is recorded for viewing later on. At this time, I'd like to ask the declaration of pecuniary interest from the council members. Seeing none, thank you. We're just going to have a roll call here by the clerk. Mr. Wheeler?
Can you hear me, sir?
You can.
Okay, we'll start with Councillor Craven.
Here.
Councillor Douglas.
Here.
Councillor Ottens.
Here.
Councillor Martin is late, I believe. And Mayor Davidson.
Present, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So item number 4 is the confirmation of minutes. We have the recommendation that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on June 30th, 2021 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda package. A mover, please. Councillor Ottens, Councillor Douglas, thank you. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We don't have any matters arising from the minutes or matters under the Planning Act. We do have some delegations here. The first delegation will be the concerned citizens of Wellington 7 and 17. We have with us tonight Amanda Reed and James Ferrier. Welcome to both of you. You have the floor.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Davidson and members of Mapleton Council. And I also see that Earl joined us from the county, so welcome. As constituents of the Township of Mapleton, we're asking for support from members of our Township's Council to set forth a motion with Wellington County Roads Committee and the Wellington County Council to ask for a reconsideration vote on the bypass alternate route that has been implemented and signs posted for the Provincial Highway 6 bypass truck route of Fergus along Wellington County Roads 7 and 17, as well as a request to remove the signage adopting this change. We would, along with that support, ask the Township of Mapleton to complete an engineer's report of safety to show the assertion that if a truck were to be traveling northbound on Wellington 7, that they would safely be able to turn east onto Wellington Road 17. We would like the engineer report to ascertain that these trucks, semi-tractor trailers, larger vehicles can safely make the turn without leaving their designated lanes, the boundary of their lane, and state if they have any concern for mounting the curb or the sidewalk area and have any posed risks to other motorists along the road, walking pedestrians, or other at-risk situations for the corner. As the concerned citizens of Wellington, our group focuses around 3 main areas of concern, as we've listed below in our letter. The first and of utmost importance is the safety of your constituents and the children of this township. We believe that increased traffic along this route will impact the safety of those living and working here due to the already poor sightlines on both of these roads, current high levels of traffic at all times, as well as the additional traffic we've been seeing at rush hours and weekends, and the multiple school zones that this route actually will transverse through, impacting not only school areas for Ponsby and Salem, and of course, Alma Public School. It would seem the hundreds of children that cross this route to attend Alma Public School or have bus stops along this route to attend more senior schools within the county will be put at risk. Mapleton residents and all those living on 7 and 17 are now at an increased risk, not to mention the obvious lack of crosswalks and traffic calming in all of these areas. Secondly, we vigorously oppose the downloading of this risk, the cost and effects to businesses from a provincial route to a county route. The increased road usage, the upkeep, the maintenance will all cost ratepayers more in terms of increased taxation. The provincial route was in existence and has been for over 100 or close to 100 years. And those who chosen to live or work along Highway 6 acknowledged that risk and chose to live and work there. And they, as road users living in the area of Wellington 7 and 17, did not choose to live on a provincial highway. And we did not expect to have these issues forced upon us, and we deserve the chance to object them. And the township also deserves to object them. And we have been advised you were never a part of the actual decisions to implement these changes to the routes around Fergus and into our township. And you should have the opportunity to state your objections and possible relocations to the county. The cost to commercial businesses that are along this new truck route hasn't even been studied or understood yet. Many patrons of these businesses along County Route 7 and 17 have commented that they feel uncomfortable exiting and entering roadways with the increased traffic levels. Finally, we're very concerned at the lack of planning, no consultation of residents of these county roads, and the disregard for voiced opposition from those impacted by it. It's alarming. We worry about the clear political motivations behind this route. The county roads of 7 and 17 split many of the provincial, county, and municipal ridings, so the affected citizens are split and diluted amongst these ridings and wards, and even townships, to mitigate the political fallout. As mentioned above, the nearly 100-year-old relationship between Provincial Highway 6 and Centre Wellington has been relatively productive in the movement of goods and people through our townships. The Township of Centre Wellington has planned for population and growth for business, but they failed to plan for the movement of these people and goods. Instead of creating a viable plan to expand Public Highway 6 or move trucks to a dedicated bypass around Fergus, they've essentially passed the problem off to other municipalities and areas of other townships without resident consultation. This became the easiest option for them. The lack of communication, no consultation, and no notification to the impacted businesses and residents is entirely unacceptable and is a very real example of a handoff of a responsibility, of cost, and of risk. We thank you for your time and allowing us to voice our concerns directly to you, our councillors, and our mayor. And as our Township of Mapleton Council, we are asking for your support as a council or the township itself to set forth the motion with Wellington Council and Roads Committee for a reconsideration vote on the alternate route of Provincial Highway 6 Provincial Highway 6 through Fergus to along Wellington Road 7 and 17. And we also ask within this motion to remove all signage on these routes that have adopted the change already. We would, along with that support, be asked that a proper engineer's report be completed to show the assertion of safety at the corner of 7 and 17. The designation of these larger vehicles making a safe turn without leaving the boundary of their lane is concerning. I have personally witnessed them mounting a curb and sidewalk to make a right-hand turn. I've also noticed that they've posed a risk to other motorists on the road by turning and taking over 2 lanes to be able to make that right-hand turn. We've spoken to some trucking companies and local drivers and some even Guelph drivers themselves, and they've confirmed with me and our other constituents that this corner is hard to navigate. It's hard to navigate safely and navigate at all. The county have provided me today with a basic engineer's report, but it was inaccurate to the state of the corner by the drivers on the road, pedestrians that cross there. And in the picture that was provided to council with my letter, you can see clearly that the truck turning right is overtaking the entire space of both lanes to make that turn. The support you give us to this issue will affect the health and safety of our community directly here in Alma, and as well as families of Alma and residents of the Township of Mapleton. We thank you for your time tonight, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Thank you, Amanda. James, did you want to speak as well?
I'm sort of here as a bystander, I guess. I'm technically a resident of Centre Wellington, so I co-chair the Concerned Citizens with Amanda. I think Amanda really said all that we need to say.
Thanks, James. So yeah, we'll have questions from council members now. The engineer's report that you received, Amanda, from the county, it is a county road, so they would have all the engineering reports, and it wouldn't be a township. It wouldn't be our responsibility to get engineering reports of that intersection. The county should have those. They should have those when they re-engineered that road. And I don't know if that's what they gave you today or not, but they should have those. Questions then for the delegation? Councillor Martin or Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, not so much a question, just more of a comment, I guess. Like, I generally agree with a lot of what Amanda has said. I'm not sure if the ask of the engineer's report is quite the right ask. I think maybe what we really want to see is a transportation impact study, and just looking at level of service as that truck route gets more volume, and trucks can't make that right turn. It's going to start to back things up and degrade the level of service. So it'd be more, I think, interesting to see that. Maybe they already did a transportation impact study as part of the design, but now that things are rolling and it's posted, it'd be interesting to see an update to that. And maybe you guys can let me know, like, I'm not in that area in the morning or afternoon at all. Like, is there a level of service degradation there, more of a queue because trucks not making that turn?
Amanda?
I agree with you, Councillor Douglas, about the transportation study. That's also been something I had mentioned even to Greg in a conversation we had a few weeks ago. In regards to the impact of trucks lining up and things like that within the traffic that's actually at the corner. Anyone who's driven to Alma on a Friday night can attest to the fact that we can see, I'm not sure how familiar you are with that specific road, but you can see traffic lined up all the way from the corner down past Windmill, down past Dirkston's, almost as far as the Salem Hill, where you can kind of see the top of the granary on there. So there is definitely traffic that gets lined up. And if there's a stopped car, a truck trying to turn right, there's just such an impactment on a lineup either way.
Quite
So
often
Amanda,
that's the
James-
case.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Yeah, quite often that's the case where a truck will be coming north on 7 and trying to make that right-hand turn onto 17, and they do need to swing wide, swing into the oncoming lane, and there'll be a car stopped at the stoplight there. So that truck effectively has to either wait until that car is able to move out of the way or wait for the next light cycle for there to no longer be a vehicle in that oncoming lane. So
Is this a problem mostly in with the traffic lineup for both of you? Is it a summertime issue mostly, or do we see this in the wintertime as well?
you see it all year round. The summer is definitely more frequent. Yeah, those Friday and Saturdays during the summer when cottagers are going north, that is definitely more impactful.
Yeah, I would agree with James that it is all year. You do see more of an impact in the summer with cottagers, obviously, but you do see that that traffic lineup most nights. The other thing I was just going to add is to James, when they're turning right, I've seen a lot of people have to back up that are waiting to turn left onto 17 to be out of the way.
You, Councillor Ottens?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Given what Amanda just said, it strikes me that a lot of problems on this intersection remind me of a very busy and very tight intersection downtown Listowel, where some of the turn issues were mitigated by backing up the stop line at the lights, so that if the stop traffic is further back, then the trucks and other vehicles that need to make a wide turn, and a truck is going to make a wide right turn regardless. It doesn't matter if it's busy or not busy, or bypasses or not bypasses. Trucks will continue to come through downtown Alma and will continue to have to make that turn at some point. So the intersection needs to be adjusted accordingly regardless of a bypass. So it strikes me that what's probably needed is a study on traffic, including a backed up stop line at the corners so that trucks can make those turns without cars having to back up or be in the way, because that seems to be the main issue here. The picture you included it looks like a chicken truck and a fuel truck, and probably they're going to continue to come through Alma regardless of a bypass, since those businesses are all over the place. So we need to deal with the traffic that's there rather than trying to assume all trucks are magically going to disappear if the bypass disappears, because unfortunately that's not going to happen.
I think we should make clear, Mrs. Ottens, we're not against local truck traffic at all. We're just trying to slow the trucks transiting through that aren't,
Right.
supporting local
I
business
understand
and
you
that
want
kind of thing.
you want a reduction of what's there, but since some will always continue to be there, we need to make adjustments accordingly so that the ones that will be there, bypass or not, can make those turns safely. And then after that, addressing the issues of crosswalks and pedestrians.
Amanda?
Yeah, so I do have, Marlene, in regards to your comment about the turn lanes being stepped back, that already is in place in Alma. I could share my screen if the mayor would allow and show the engineer's report that I did receive that shows those lanes are backed up. So they've already done that when they redid the intersection. I believe I can be corrected, but I believe it was 2017. They did put both left turn lanes for all 4 corners of that intersection at a pushback point.
Thank you. Councillor Craven?
Through you, your worship, to Amanda, I have heard from an odd person in Alma that when this traffic is lined up on going north on 7 up to the light, that some of them impatient people, both trucks and or cars, will go across the corner of Bueller's lot instead of waiting for the light. Can you confirm that or not?
I can. That actually happened last week, one night when we were out on a walk. It wasn't a semi-tractor trailer, mind you, but it was 3 different cars went directly through his lot to avoid the corner. So there was
Thank you.
2 cars sitting in the line.
And with that lineup of traffic back way out on south on 7, the traffic is very tempted to go around on Nesbitt, and some of them do. I don't know how much lately. I haven't heard too much lately, but it's pretty tempting for them to go around on Nesbitt.
Yes, they do, as well as the problem with that too, that, I mean, I'm a resident of Nesbitt Street, so maybe I'm a little biased in the sense, but they do run the stop sign at Muir. We watched 5 trucks, vehicles, we'll just say vehicles, 2 or 3 were big trucks that shouldn't really be on Nesbitt Street, according to the signage we have in town, and 2 other regular vehicles. Of those 5, only 1 made an actual 3-second proper stop.
It's pretty
And
dangerous. Pretty dangerous for them to
Councillor
go on Nesbitt too, because with no sidewalks there, any kids that are riding bikes or anything are going to be on the road, and it's not an overly wide road to start with, so it's pretty dangerous.
Thank you. Just for you and Amanda and James, how many times have you contacted the OPP about, if there's running down the wrong street or their trucks are causing problems? You ever contacted the OPP with issues on the roads?
Not myself recently. I directed my conversations to you last week.
Yeah. All right. Any further questions? Okay, thank you both Amanda and James for appearing and having your comments here.
Thank you.
I do have a recommendation here I need a mover and a seconder, please. The Township of Mapleton Council received the delegation of concerned citizens of Wellington Road 7 and 17 for information. Mover, please. Councillor Douglas and Councillor Ottens. Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for your delegation. Moving on to item 7.2, the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. We have Janet Harrop and Ben Lafort. Welcome, Janet and Ben.
Good evening. Thank you, Council, for allowing us to provide a presentation to you. The Wellington Federation of Agriculture work hard to work with our rural municipalities to try to support agriculture within our communities. I will pass the presentation over to Ben Lafort, who is a staff member at OFA, and he will walk Council through the presentation, and then we'll be happy to take questions after.
Awesome. Thanks, Janet. Just wondering, okay, I can't share my screen here. Okay, so let's pull up the slide deck that we have. Okay. All right. Okay. So, yeah, thank you for giving us time here today. We quickly want to review the methodology of the cost community services projects that OFA has done 2 of so far, which we'll get into in a few slides, one in Dufferin County and one in Elgin County. And wanting to have a discussion, but if Mapleton would potentially be interested in hosting the 3rd study, a similar study in your township in the near future. So first of all, what are they? So these cost of community services studies, these were initially developed by the American Farmland Trust in the 80s. And basically what, the part of it is to break the municipality's land base into distinct categories. So residential, commercial, industrial, farm are the four main categories in the townships we've been looking at. And allocate all the municipalities' revenues and expenditures to each of those land use categories. So these are, pretty common in the US. There's been hundreds of these studies in the US. 3 have been done only in Canada. 1 was in Alberta, and then the other 2 were in Ontario that we've been involved with over the last several years. I think the easiest way to kind of think about the results of one of these studies is that they are a snapshot in time. So we'd be looking at, the results of one municipality in 1 year. So when we did it in Dufferin for the 2019 tax year, that was, the results for Dufferin in 2019. And that's not necessarily results for Mulmer. Not necessarily results for Mulmer in 2022 or 2021 or for Mapleton 2019. So, right, these are snapshots in time. They're case studies. That's why we want to do more of them. So what these snapshots are showing really is the total revenues and expenditures associated with each of the land use categories that are set up there. So the study basically has four steps. Number 1 is to find those land use categories, and we use property tax classifications to help with that. Makes it a lot easier. They have residential, farm, and forest is kind of one class together, and commercial industrial is another class that typically gets lumped in together. The second step is to collect all the data and the local revenues, local expenditures. That's where, we need a great partnership with a municipality who's interested in partnering on the study, because obviously that's where all the information expertise is and the knowledge is held. And third is allocating then all those revenues and expenditures to each of those land use categories. So that's done, we look through all the data, we talk with department heads, and lean on their expertise as well to make those allocations, which is really the heart of the whole exercise. And then we need a way to kind of sum up the results in a way that kind of makes sense. So there's this expense over revenue ratio. And I think that graph is the best way to understand what that is. So these are the average results of the 151 studies we looked at in the US that were completed. I would say this horizontal red line is kind of like your break-even point. What that is saying, if you're have a ratio here of 1, what that means is that in that study result, for every dollar revenue land use category brought into the municipality, it demanded exactly $1 worth of services from the municipality in that year as well. So it's coming in and coming out the exact same rate. Being below that line would show that for every dollar of revenue brought in, less than $1 of revenue was demanded in services, and above the red line would be the opposite, obviously, where more than $1 in services is demanded for every dollar revenue brought in. So that's kind of the best way to understand the results. And these are the average results for the studies in the US, showing the 2 kind of employment classifications, farm and the commercial industrial classes being below and the residential being above, all for kind of different reasons that drive the results for each land use category. So while they are, those are the average results, they vary significantly from study to study. And that's in the US, right? So we can't just, take results from the US and apply them in Canada or Ontario, because we have extremely different municipal financial systems in the US and in Canada and Ontario specifically. So we, as I mentioned, in 2020, we completed the second of these studies in Ontario, which was done in Mulmer Township. And we kind of had 2 objectives that we wanted there. First was to continue to gather some Ontario specific data, like I said. And second was to identify services that perhaps the provincial government should be playing a larger role in funding. We ask our municipalities to deliver many different services and only really give them one revenue tool to do that, which is property tax. And that may not, can be a bit of a blunt instrument. Not all services, maybe some particular services make more sense to be funded from a different source, like an income tax, which is at the provincial level. So those are the two kind of objectives we had for the study. I'll quickly kind of move through these because I've already kind of covered it. Step one, yeah, we define land use categories: residential, commercial, and I'll note that residential includes farmhouses because again, we're using the tax classifications, and farm residents are taxed as residential, commercial and industrial, and farm and forest together. So again, when you're looking at the farm, we're just looking at the portions of the property that are in the farm tax classification, as well as the managed forest tax classification. Collecting all the data. So yeah, TFA and Dufferin Federation and myself met with Mayor and CAO when we got started. This is actually the last in-person meeting I've had was this meeting to collect all the data. So before COVID, so it was good timing. The rest of it's done through follow-up, and just a quick kind of running through kind of what it looks like a little bit. So this was just a slice of their financial information return, looking at, those are the tax classifications and assessments, just to show that this is kind of what that same slide here looks like when we slot it all into one of those 3 different land use categories. Same for their operating expenses. And again, this is what it looks like when it's after all the allocations were done. So in terms of doing the actual allocations, so for allocating expenses, we tried to get a proxy for the demand for each service. So to use a kind of mathematically simple example of, say, fire police, if there were 100 calls for service in a year, and say 85 of them went to residential, 5 went to farm properties, and 10 went to commercial, the allocations for the cost of those services would be 85 to residential, 10 to commercial industrial, 5 to farm and forest, just as a hypothetical mathematical example. So it's using the proportional demand for each service. And these were the final results for Mulmer, which showed residential, for every $1 of revenue brought in, consumed 92 cents worth of services. For farm properties, 61 cents for the services demanded for every $1 brought in revenue. And commercial industrial, which was the very extremely surprising result, $1.34 in services demanded in that year for every $1 of revenue brought in. This would highlight the fact that this is a case study, and we certainly would not have expected this. We typically commercial industrial is the lowest by far of the 3 land use categories. It just so happened in that year, that's what happens when you have a case study in one municipality in 1 year, and you have a very small property class of commercial industrial in Mulmer. So any alteration to, if there was a little bit more than expected of a demand for a particular type of service in 1 year, can throw the results off what we would expect, which is partially why it's good to do many of these studies. Second step, which I'll go through as quickly as I can because I don't want to take up too much of your time, is we're looking to identify areas where the province could better support our rural municipalities. We are most interested when we're having that discussion in our rural lower tier municipalities, especially. So yeah, municipalities are asked to deliver a lot of different types of services. Many of those we kind of classify as people related services, and you only have property taxes as your revenue tool. So things health services, social services, housing, recreational services. A lot of these are people related services, and some of them not perfectly correlated with property assessment and property taxes. And we're trying to identify in there what are areas where we can find in here that perhaps the federations and the municipalities can work together to lobby the province on better funding arrangements for rural municipalities. It's something we at OFA have worked with municipal partners in the past. We lobbied many times for years on OMPF funding, still chipping away at that. That unfortunately has not been going the way we would like. And a big focus of our Producing Prosperity campaign is on rural roads and bridges, rural infrastructure. So, we're looking at other different services within the studies that might be able to, if they were uploaded, would be extremely beneficial to the rural municipalities. One example we were looking at in the last study is the educational property tax piece, where it is kind of an awkward fit where municipalities are still collecting educational property tax, but not really directly involved in education policy. Other services like police services, again, where it's a large cost to municipalities, but a lot of the policy is at the provincial level. And again, that's a service. We're looking at services too that are benefit to all Ontarians, right? So if something's a benefit to everyone in Ontario, if I were doing this meeting in person and I went to Mapleton to do this meeting in person and I was in a car accident on the way home, I'd be very happy to have access to emergency services and whatnot, even though I'm not a taxpayer of Mapleton, right? So we're looking at what are services that are kind of a common good and may not be necessarily highly correlated with property tax dollars. Because again, if it may not be necessarily the case that the province needs to pump more money directly into rural municipalities, but if they were to say upload educational property tax or load other services that are more people-related services that are benefits to everyone in Ontario, that would free up more property tax dollars to go towards infrastructure. So there's different ways to kind of look at it. And one of our objectives really is to find areas where our rural lower tier municipalities can kind of agree on a position of, these are maybe the top priorities of that would ease fiscal burden in rural municipalities. So if Mapleton were to be interested in hosting a study, what would be the commitment? So it certainly would require, first and foremost, the staff time, sharing of department reports, sitting down to discuss them, email and phone call follow-ups on that. Having time for meetings and follow-ups. Where we are in COVID, a lot of it that time can be quick Zoom calls or emails. We did most of the so we've done 2 of these studies. The first one is in 2014. We did in Elgin, and that was a lot of me driving to Elgin to do that. And last year we did this in Dufferin County, and that was a lot of me on the phone and email. So it was, in terms of time, it was less of a time. But that is a big commitment that would be, from the municipality's perspective. So that's kind of it in a long and short of it in a nutshell. So I think at this point, probably most productive if I just throw it open to questions or comments or any discussion from you folks. And thank you again for giving us the time to make this presentation.
Thank you, Ben, for that presentation, and thank you, Janet, for being here as well. Questions from members of council on this presentation? Councilor Ottens?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Davidson. I'm not sure how you talked about perhaps uploading the education costs, for example. I'm not sure how that increases revenue for a municipality, because that would just take all we're doing is collecting it and funneling it via the county to the province. So if suddenly it's collected in a different way, we're not gaining that income. The people aren't going to continue to pay that amount to Mapleton and also pay their education taxes a different route. So we're not really gaining through that theory there. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that.
Yeah, so in theory, it would allow you to continue collecting similar amount of property tax, or maybe even a slight reduction, but just keeping it more for services within your municipality. Whereas, income tax, sales tax, all these land transfer tax that the provincial government would absorb it, and it wouldn't necessarily be a particular line item on anyone's tax bill, right? The way it currently is. So certainly not this is an example of a potential item in municipal finance right now that we're asking municipalities to be involved in, and just looking at it and saying, is this still the best, most effective way to raise revenue for this service?
Other comments, questions? Go ahead, Marlene.
Sorry, so you're saying that if, for example, if our farm paid $500 in education taxes and then it was uploaded to the province to collect it elsewhere, you're suggesting that the municipality could just continue to collect that and keep it for themselves, I think the taxpayers would kind of see through that.
Well, I mean, if the case was made that the dollars were being used for services that benefit taxpayers within the municipality, right? If you took an extra $500 off your farm and put it into roads and bridges and multiplied that by all the other farms in the area, that would likely be enough to fund. Well, it's what we found in Mulmer was it was more than enough, would have been more than enough to close the infrastructure funding gap there, and bring all of the roads and bridges up to code and have them fully funded moving forward.
Well, I guess we could do that now and let the chips fall, but I don't think that would go over very well.
Further questions and comments from council members? So Ben, what you're asking is for us to, with staff to work with the OFA, provide some data, and you'd provide us a snapshot of how we spend money. Is that basically what it is?
That's a good, yeah, I should have had you do the presentation.
So it's given another set of eyes to look at how we spend money. Some of this other uploading, I'm kind of with Marlene, some of the uploading with the province is going to be very difficult. And you guys know, working with the province, it's not going to be easy to upload anything to the province. They like to download, not upload. So that would be very difficult to do. Councillor Douglas, you have a question?
I'm just wondering, I'm not sure if this is the best question for Manny or not, but how much staff time do we anticipate would be required to do this exercise?
Yeah, that's a great question. It varies. I could pull out and see from my emails, because basically what happened in Mulmer, we basically were billed to recover the cost of staff time. And I'll have to look at that invoice to see if there was a kind of line item for a number of hours. I would estimate be looking in the range total, right? When we're looking at the other, speaking with multiple different department staff, 20 to 30 hours of total time.
Mr. Barron?
Yeah, so thank you, Your Worship. When we had our conference call with Janet and Ben, it was discussed, and I thought it was a little bit less than that. However, I mean, given the, Mapleton is a strong agricultural community, and given our relationship with the OFA, I would recommend that we go ahead with the study. I mean, it's only, like you said, it's not an official study. More information is always more power, in my opinion, that we can use to help ourselves. So, I mean, it's up to council if they wish to allocate staff time, of course, on this. But we're a willing partner if that means anything.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Mr. Craven?
I would say go ahead and do the study. Anytime we can do things more efficiently, we want to be involved in that, I would think.
Councilor Douglas, another comment or question?
If that was a motion, I would second that.
So the motion right now, I'll read the recommendation that's in here. It's basically receive for information that the Township of Mapleton Council receive for information Ontario Federation of Agriculture's presentation entitled Overview of Cost of Community Services Methodology. We can add to that if council so wishes, and that staff are directed to work with the OFA should Mapleton be chosen to participate. Would that work, Ben, for you? Because we're not guaranteed to participate in this right now, right?
That sounds perfect. Yeah, because how it is right now, basically, we'll be looking to do the next study in the fall, and after we release the Mulmer results, we had a lot of interest from a lot of our county federations. So we've had similar types of meetings like this with other municipalities. So basically in September, I'll be going to the OFA board and say, here's all the municipalities that said yes, they would like to host, and then they'll tell me where to follow up with from there.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. If the council remembers, we had a resolution not too long ago about farm tax credits that we give out and the amount of money we lose. And we sent that off, and we had WFA here and OFA talking to us about that resolution as well. So we were trying to work hand in hand with the WFA and OFA to try to come up with some solutions so we can continue to work together. As Mr. Barron had pointed out, we are the agricultural area, the big hub of Wellington County, actually, our agriculture. So it'd be I think I agree, Mr. Bear, and I had this conversation that it wouldn't hurt to have that extra set of eyes looking at our finances and looking at that 1 year snapshot, just to give us some other ideas, another look at it from the WFA and OFA. So if council is okay, we can add that piece in and that staff are directed to work with the OFA should Mapleton be chosen to participate. Is council okay with that addition to the recommendation? Councilor Craven says yes. Council, okay. So I've read the recommendation. I thank Ben and thank Janet. Any more questions for Ben or Janet before we move on? Janet, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I mean, I think the cost of community services when OFA started doing the studies, which was again several years ago, just for transparency, was to really look at the farm tax class portion of the tax bill, and that's why this is coming through OFA. And the cost of community services studies have kind of evolved to recognize that it's more of a land use planning tool. So when you're, especially with places to grow, and you're seeing more people kind of coming into different municipalities. I mean, one of the benefits of this study is it shows, should we be expanding residential? Should we be expanding commercial, industrial? Are the farm numbers that we have, because as you pointed out, and why the Federation, the WFA, has focused on Mapleton, it is the agricultural hub of the county, and to be able to have this information to take back to OFA to help to lobby, particularly around some of those municipal partnership funds, to be able to support the roads and bridges within your municipality is why we've come to you.
Thank you, Janet, for that clarification. And as council knows, that we went through a process of looking at expanding our boundaries to have more industry and have more residential, and that process is ongoing with staff working with the county and the amount of allocation given to us. So we've had this conversation. This goes in the wheelhouse that we're working in. So the recommendation is on the floor. Do I need to read it in totality again, council? Or are you good with that already? You want to read it over again, or are you good? You're good? Okay. And so anybody opposed? Then that is carried. Thank you, Janet and Ben. So if we are so chosen, our staff are going to be working with you. Thank you so much.
Just to double check, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Wheeler.
Did we get a mover and seconder?
My apologies. Moved by Councillor Craven, I believe, and Councillor Douglas was seconder. Thank you for keeping me on my toes, Mr. Wheeler. We'll move on to the next one. We have item 7.3, which is a delegation from Helen Edwards about the Senior Senator of Excellence. Helen, welcome. It's been a while. And I see Helen is,
yes.
There you are.
There I am. Thank you so much for having me. I have prepared a little presentation on what has been happening over at the Senior Center, and I'm happy to share that with you now, if I can figure out how to do it. Share screen. Okay, success, I think. Can everyone see that?
We can see it, Helen. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So, yeah, so it's been sort of an interesting year for the Senior Center, and we just wanted to sort of update people on what had been going on just around since COVID-19 hit and how it sort of changed our services. So I've put together a little bit of a presentation about what we've been doing, because we haven't been doing any in-person we haven't done in-person since March of last year, so 2020. So it's been quite some time. As I had mentioned, the last program was in March, and during that time when it was the first wave, we were fielding a lot of telephone calls from concerned seniors and just trying to get information from public health to share with people. And it really was a very scary time, I think, for everyone. And I was in lots of meetings, and there was quite a few funding opportunities that became available through the government. And the senior center was able to get funding through the United Way, through the Centre Wellington Community Foundation, and through New Horizons. And we did spend quite a bit of time making weekly phone calls to all of our people that were enrolled in our programs, and that was done by a lot of volunteers as well. So I think it was appreciated that we were reaching out during that time. And one of the programs that I worked extensively on was the Stay Safe, Lead the Way campaign. And early on in the pandemic, it was sort of identified that older adults, there wasn't really much in the way of information that was getting out to them. There was a lot of information about staying home and those kinds of things, but not maybe what to be looking for in terms of if you're having problems like with stress or your mental health is being affected. And we wanted to make sure that we sent out different messages in terms of like services that were available, what they should be looking for, and where they should be reaching out if they had if they were struggling with issues. And these ads appeared in the Wellington Advertiser starting in April, and they ran right through until March. So it was in partnership with the Waterloo Wellington Older Adult Strategy, and we were able to determine the content of the ads by speaking with health professionals about emerging needs, and with seniors themselves about the things that they were struggling with. So even things about using face masks, not reusing face masks if you have disposable masks, and how you would dispose of them, was information that we got out really early. And I think in a way that was easy for people to understand, all directed towards seniors. One of the other things that was noted was that during the first and second wave, but particularly in the second wave, was seniors were not going to the emergency room or even going to see their physicians. And when they did get to the emergency room, they were in much frailer condition than they should have been if they had gone and seeked out medical attention when they needed. So we had people that were coming in that had cardiac issues or even a stroke and had not gone to the hospital because people were very afraid to go to the hospitals. So in this ad here, you can't see it because of our faces, but we were able to get a quote from Dr. Deacon at the Mapleton Health Center, encouraging people to please get in touch with your primary care provider if you needed some assistance. The money that we received through the United Way, which was $44,000, was used for a Good For You food box program, which we had 90 individuals that we supported with bi-weekly grocery deliveries. So there were staples for the pantry and fresh produce that were handed out every 2 weeks. We had volunteers, and we also had a part-time coordinator that worked in that position. Again, this was in response to the fact that during the pandemic, the price for fresh fruit and produce had increased, and seniors were struggling to make healthy choices at the grocery store. And we did this in partnership with the outreach team, the rural outreach team, the VON, and local churches donated space so that we could have a drop-off spot and have volunteers that did deliveries for us too. We had a grocery card program that we gave out to low-income older adults in North Wellington. And again, it was in partnership with the rural outreach team. And we were able to buy just under $8,000 or $7,500 worth of grocery cards in $50 increments that we gave out to people who we knew through knowing them that money was tight. And we were also able to support some families where grandparents were actually supporting grandchildren as well. We worked on what was called, it started out being called a daily check-in tool, and what it developed into was a calendar that we gave out through Meals on Wheels, and several, the community paramedics received a lot of the calendars too. And basically the idea was to provide information to seniors. And I apologize because my camera wasn't really taking very great pictures, but at the bottom, there's a spot where every day you can kind of track how you're feeling, and you can use it for yourself to monitor your health. And you can also, family members, if they're checking in, could see, because we were very concerned that a lot of the isolated seniors were really starting to struggle with some mental health issues. And I chose this particular month because as you can see, the quilt that there's a photo of was made by Christine Osterbelt in Drayton. And we had quite a few very talented seniors who offered photographs and pictures of their artwork that we incorporated into the calendar. And in total, there was 3,000 of these calendars printed off. The paramedics, the county paramedics, took 800 themselves to take in when they're visiting with seniors. And it's been talked about that it's going to also be adopted in other regions using the exact same format. So the template is there now. And so so other communities will use a very similar tool. And then also, we've been doing a lot of virtual programming and programming over the telephone. It's amazing how many people, I think there's a silver lining in all of this pandemic, is that there has been such an increase in the number of seniors embracing technology. And I think a lot of them maybe kind of grudgingly being pushed towards technology, but now that they understand how easy it is to join in on a Zoom session, we have people joining in on a regular basis. And this sort of just gives an idea of the kind of content that we have. We had Cherry's Garage on to talk about the changes that they've seen in Drayton since starting their business. Back in time for winter, we had a couple come on who live in Sudbury. They starred in a reality show on CBC where they had to live through the decades from the 1940s to the 1990s in their home. So the first episode was the 1940s, and so they were sharing some of their experiences around that program. It's really neat. So in September, we're going to be getting one of the topics was food, how terrible some of the food was in the earlier days. So in September, we're going to be doing one where we're asking some of the seniors to make some recipes that are in older cookbooks. And my particular recipe is going to be, I picked it out myself. The 2 key ingredients are lemon jello and tuna. So, so we have had so much fun. And I would say that Glennis, who runs the programs, is so amazing. And it's been really well, it's been really welcomed by the community. And we're so glad to see our seniors so engaged in these activities, even when they can't be with their peers. So that's the end of that presentation. I just would say a shout out. I thought I had really figured out that we were going to get a lot of people when I was able to get in touch with Dave Phillips, the meteorologist from Environment Canada, and he appeared to talk about climate change. But the person who holds the record for the most people is Floyd Sheik, when he told some of his poems and Christmas stories. So there you go. You just, the nostalgia and having people with him from the community is really something. And another thing that we have been doing is focusing on some businesses, local businesses, like we had EB Family, Honey Family Farm on and things like that, just promoting the uniqueness of the community that we live in. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you very much, Helen, for this wonderful information about what's been going on. And boy, you've been really busy over there. And I'm glad to see this changing of helping the seniors onto the Zoom calls and letting them get together. This is fantastic. If you could just stop sharing your screen for us, Helen, that'd be great. We'll just turn over to council members. I now know we have Councillor Martin on. Councillor Martin, before we get going, do you have any declaration of pecuniary interest?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I apologize for my tardiness.
Not a problem, my friend. And glad to have you. So questions for Helen then from council members? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Davidson. I wondered, Helen, did you see a difference in attendance numbers from when you had in-person meetings to doing it all virtual? Was there quite a downturn of numbers, or was it pretty good? I know that, for example, my mother, there's no way she could participate in any of that, as she's just beyond the tech. But I wondered if that was true of a lot more people, or if it was pretty good.
It actually has been pretty good. And one of the things that we were able to, with Glennis, was that she can talk to the senior. What she would do is call the senior, send them the email with the link, and then speak to the senior on the phone until they could see each other on the computer. And I think it was more just the fact that they imagined it to be something that was so difficult, and really if they could answer an email, then they were able to participate. The one thing is we were not able to have any of our walking groups. So our numbers were not as great as they had been in previous years, but and the shuffle board had to be all canceled. So there were we had less less opportunities to have people involved in the programming. But I would still say at the end of the day, we have quite a few people that are involved now that would probably have told you at the beginning of COVID that there is no way that they would be able to manage it. So it has been good that way.
Maybe I need to have Gladys help me with my mom. I'm getting her on there.
Yeah, you do.
I get all those phone calls all the time, even today. Something went wrong. Other questions or comments? Councilor Martin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you to Helen. I'm not sure who twisted your arm to get you to put a presentation like this together, or if you did it by yourself. But you know, anybody that's been around you for any period of time knows the passion that you have for this the Center for Excellence. And I was not aware of the amount of initiatives that you created and accessed over the last year, 16 months. Specifically directed towards the seniors. So this was excellent that you kind of put it together in a package so we could view it. Certainly more interesting than the fiscal reports that we usually see from you on occasion here. So thank you for your efforts and your work on these initiatives. They're really neat. And, you know, I think our seniors, you know, across Mapleton and Minto and North Wellington are, you know, very lucky to have this program. So thank you for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Councilor
worth a
Martin.
lot, Mike.
Very
It's
good
worth a
words,
lot.
Councilor Martin.
Councilor Martin, sorry. It's worth a
Yeah.
lot. Thank you.
Very good words, Councilor Martin. It's great to you know, that we're recognizing the efforts that are put out through this COVID period. Absolutely. And I was unaware of all that they've done over there. It's quite the list. But our seniors have been very, very lucky to be able to have this Center of Excellence. Further observations or questions from council? Thank you very much, Helen, for this presentation. Very uplifting, I must say.
Thank you.
So we do have a recommendation here that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information the delegation of Senior Center of Excellence presentation, the impact of COVID-19, moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Craven. Anybody opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much, Helen. Moving on to our next one. We have Seema here. So we have Kelly with us today, and I think do we have Aaron with us as well?
Yes.
We do. Perfect. All right, so we'll turn it over to presentation from Kelly and Aaron.
Excellent. So I'll start sharing my screen. So I will go first and talk you through the wastewater condition assessment that SEMA completed, and I'll hand it over to Aaron Longworth, who will be talking through the water and wastewater master servicing plan. Thank you very much for having us both here today. So on the agenda, I'll be going through just an overview of projects that we're working on with Mapleton at your water and wastewater facilities. And I'm going to give you some background on the asset management process. And then I'll talk you through just an overview of the Mapleton wastewater system. So what assets you do have, what buildings are there, what infrastructure is providing the wastewater treatment in your communities. And then I'll talk about the condition assessment methodology that we applied when we went through your facilities. And then I'll discuss the condition assessment review, some of our findings, and then our recommendations to you for capital planning of your wastewater assets based on our condition assessment. So just a review of the projects that SEMA is working with the township on. We presented earlier on the water condition assessment study, so then I'm following up today with the wastewater focus study. Aaron will be talking next about the water and wastewater master plan for growths. We are also working on a Cell 1 lagoon cleanout. So that was an upgrade that was identified earlier. It's one that is needed just based on how long that lagoon has been in service and to ensure continued good quality treatment at your plant. There's also a project that we recognize needs to come up for some upgrades at your Drayton sewage pumping station, as well as improvements at your Mapleton wastewater treatment plant for nitrification and capacity upgrades in the future. So we'll talk a little bit about the asset management process that we go through and why it's important to your community. So when we do an asset management review, this is something that is required by Ontario Regulation 588/17. So all municipalities are required to do an inventory of assets that document the assets you have, the condition of those assets, the cost of those assets, So what would be the replacement cost for it, and to demonstrate that you're doing capital planning. The plan, once established, is to be updated every 5 years, and it was required to be implemented by July 1st, 2021 for core infrastructure like what you have in Mapleton. So the asset management, just this graph, what you can see is there's different approaches, and we can help you categorize what assets should fall into different categories, and then build a plan in advance for that asset replacement. You have some assets that are not critical, so it's okay to replace them after failure. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you have very critical assets. So those that must, remain in service or can have very short downtime. So we want to make sure that we're managing, we know those assets, we know when they need to be replaced, so that we're not reacting, but instead we're planning, we're moving forward, we're ready for those costs for the municipality and how much you need to spend on your wastewater infrastructure. So next I'll give you an overview of the Mapleton wastewater system that was covered. So in Mapleton, for the centralized wastewater treatment systems, you have your Drayton sewage pumping station, which transfers sewage to your treatment plant. And then it also services Moorfield, which is transferred from a separate wastewater treatment plant. It goes, the wastewater goes through your lagoon process. And then before it's discharged seasonally, it goes through tertiary filters and UV before being discharged to the Conestoga River. So our condition assessment methodology that we applied, what we do is we go to the field. So we had a team of our internal experts from various disciplines go out to site, and they did a visual inspection of all of your assets. So they gather physical and performance information. So we talked to your operators, got information on, any concerns that they had, any observations they had about performance issues. We document each asset. We assign a score to each asset to develop that asset inventory into major categories, such as the buildings, process, electrical, and site works. After creating that inventory, we create kind of our condition assessment approach, where we determine what's the useful life for that asset remaining, what is the risk of it failing, what's the consequence of failure, and then we come up with replacement requirements on an individual asset basis. And then we always make sure that we bundle that together into, there's similar assets that may make sense for you to upgrade those assets and replace them as part of a package. So we try to create those project packages for you with a timeline of when those types of projects should be carried out, or if it's something that needs to happen on an ongoing replacement cycle. So next I'll talk about some of the results of our condition assessment findings. So we had our multidiscipline team go through. So we had engineers from our structural and architectural go through, review your assets visually and categorize them. We also went through for your HVAC, mechanical and electrical, all of your process piping and equipment, and then as well as process instrumentation and your site works. So on the left are a few pictures of the sites that we visited and the equipment. So for the condition assessment, we went to your Drayton sewage pumping station. So assets that we inventoried at your Drayton sewage pumping station include the generator and the generator building. From what we could see at the top of the wet well, we did not go into infrastructure. So things that had confined spaces like your wet well, the SEMA team did not enter, but we documented what we could see. And then so if we knew that a pump was concealed, we couldn't see it in your wet well, we'd still make sure that that ended up in your inventory as well. We also went to your Moorfield pumping station. And then we went to the Mapleton wastewater treatment plant, where we documented, your lagoon cells, as well as your alum buildings, the filter building and blower building, and all the infrastructure within them. So after we went to site, we created that inventory. We documented all of your existing assets that offer value to the township. We created a capital planning process. So based on our findings, we identified projects that should be completed in the short term. So the types of projects that we identified to happen in the short term, we found that there's some emergency and exit lighting installations that should happen in the short term to make sure that you're meeting Ontario building code. And again, these are things that we regularly find when we go out and do condition assessments, and we do part of our checks to make sure you're meeting codes. So that will be a small project that should happen just to install that emergency lighting. We also noticed some just electrical weather stripping, best to replace it now. If you go out and address it now, you're going to avoid the higher cost of replacing that entire panel by just fixing the weather stripping. Also, as part of our investigation, we did not do any working at height, so we didn't bring, our engineers didn't bring ladders to site. We do recommend maybe working with a roofing company or someone that can go up on top of some of your roofs, just confirm the condition of those roofs and then determine, when that roof should be replaced. We also found a few items that we thought should be investigated further with regards to your standby power and electrical upgrades. So we have some more detailed recommendations about going out doing a specific test to your generator, and we noticed some very minor electrical repairs that should be done just to keep that equipment in good working order. One of the larger projects that council had already planned for in the short term that is shown as well is just the clean out of the Mapleton Cell 1. So SEMA is working on that right now, and we're looking to have a tender package ready this fall for the township. So projects that we're recommending council plan for in the next 5 to 10 years include some upgrades at the Moorfield sewage pumping station. So I know in the past few years, there's been some kind of emergency repairs required there. And one thing that was noted is that it's difficult to isolate and do some maintenance on some of the equipment there. So we're recommending a small project that would improve that. It would minimize risk to the township as well and minimize potential shutdown time if something was to fail and the operators needed access to go in and do replacement. So there's some upgrades that you can do to your existing infrastructure that'll be of a lot of value to the township moving forward. We also noticed with one of the alum dosing points, there's some minor upgrades that could be done just to improve the alum heat tracing and to extend a downspout. There's just some localized pooling, so some minor grading improvements there as well. It would address some of the operational concerns, and there was some concern about potential for freezing. So if we go ahead and we proactively address that, we won't have a risk of not dosing alum, which is used for phosphorus removal in our wastewater treatment process. And then we recommended, there's some ongoing process asset replacements, like instruments and stuff that are just reaching the end of their service life. So we have a program just over the next 10 years. There's instruments that are going to come up on an ongoing basis for replacement. So we're able to attribute values to each of those instruments, and then the township can plan for their replacement before failure. And then we also recommend filter media investigation. That filter media has just been in service for a long time, so you can have a specialty service. Just go out there, test your filter media, and then it can confirm just the life of that filter media. The next one is projects that Erin's going to be talking a bit more about next. And the timing of these projects as well will be confirmed through your master plan. But they include things like your Drayton sewage pumping station capacity increase, as well as nitrification upgrades at your Mapleton water pollution control plant and the capacity expansion. So with that, I was going to hand it over to my colleague, Erin Longworth, and then we were going to accept questions, Mr. Mayor, if that's appropriate, at the end of Erin's presentation.
That'll be fine. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. So I have a few slides. I'm just going to cover a high-level overview of the water and wastewater master plan for growth areas that we are just getting underway with. I think a few slides at the beginning here that kind of are similar to the ones that Kelly covered. I wasn't sure if our presentations would be back to back or not, but for the agenda for my presentation, I don't need to cover our Mapleton projects with SEMA again, but I'll talk a little bit about infrastructure master planning and why it's a good practice for municipalities to undertake master plans. I'll go over an overview of the Class EA master planning process, and then touch on the consultation that we will be doing throughout the master plan process. So yeah, okay, thanks. So infrastructure master planning, it's a good planning practice to do for municipalities. It covers a longer term planning horizon, typically 20 years. And it allows municipalities to integrate infrastructure requirements for existing as well as future land uses with good principles of environmental assessment planning. So master plans group related projects. They're distributed geographically throughout the study area. So you're not looking at individual projects, separate studies for each individual project. It kind of allows you to look at everything on a whole, a holistic basis. And it is intended to address overall servicing needs rather than individual development. So it allows you to plan for projects based on overall capacity, timing, and costs for all the projects that you're going to need for future growth. The results of the condition assessment studies that the wastewater one that Kelly just presented and the water that you heard about previously will be incorporated into the master plan. So needs for existing infrastructure will definitely be considered together with needs for future infrastructure that might be required for growth areas. And projects that are identified through the master plan occur over an extended time frame. So it is a long-term plan that you can use going forward. So master plans basically just provide you a broad framework that gives you need, justification, and timing for all the projects. And it can also be used to inform development charges, studies that you will require for any growth areas. Okay, so a little overview of the class environmental assessment master planning process. As you know, municipalities are subject to the provisions of the Environmental Assessment Act, and the Municipal Class EA document provides municipalities with a procedure to undertake all water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation projects. And the classes group projects that occur frequently. They're somewhat limited in scale and have predictable ranges of environmental impacts and mitigation measures that need to be implemented to protect all aspects of the environment. Okay, so master plans, there are a number of approaches. Typically, they follow phases 1 and 2 of the Class EA process. So at the moment, we are going through phase 1. We're currently reviewing all the background conditions and reports that are available, the official plan, rate studies that have been done in the past, and of course, the condition assessments that we're doing for water and wastewater. And we'll look at those together with growth needs and planning projections for the township. And with all of that background information, it will allow us to identify problem and opportunity statement for the master plan, which is the required outcome of phase 1 of the Class EA process. And for the consultation side, the notice of commencement will be issued during phase 1 to notify any stakeholders of the project and get initial input or any feedback, or if people want to be added to the study mailing list, that can be done early in the project, so we can get any input required early on. And then we'll move into phase 2, which is where the more detailed aspects are completed. So we'll look a little more in detail at the study area, so the township as a whole, and we will develop a range of alternative solutions for the existing urban areas, any growth areas. And when we develop a evaluation methodology and evaluation criteria, that will enable us to identify recommended solutions for all the infrastructure needs for the township. And once we have some preliminary recommended solutions, we will hold a public information center to obtain input from any interested parties, public stakeholders, review agencies. Once we have all of that input, we will document everything in a master plan report and file that for a public review period and issue a notice of completion. And once all of that is completed, then any projects that have been recommended through the master plan can proceed to implementation based on the timing needs for those individual projects. Next, Kelly. Okay, so this is just a little more background on the key components of the EA process. So consultation is probably the key component for the Class EA process. It happens early and throughout the process. Also, there will be a range of alternatives considered. The EA requires that you consider things like do nothing, limit growth, all the way through different alternatives to accommodate the growth that is expected in the area. We'll also need to consider all effects on the environment and methods to avoid and mitigate any impacts that might be expected through the infrastructure needed. And as I mentioned, systematic evaluation of the alternatives will be completed through an evaluation methodology and evaluation criteria that will be developed in consultation with the township in order to make sure that the decision-making process is transparent and traceable. And all of this will be documented well and placed on public review at the end of the project. Okay, so the consultation is, as I mentioned, one of the key components of the Class EA and master planning process. So a range of stakeholders will be consulted throughout, yourselves as council, public agencies, and also Indigenous communities. The Indigenous consultation aspect of the Class EA process is becoming more and more important. So they will be consulted throughout to determine if there are any concerns related to treaty rights or Aboriginal lands or anything that they might note for the study. So a contact list will be developed, or has been developed actually, and will be maintained throughout the project. So it's kind of a living document. If people request to be added to the contact list, then we will make sure that they're notified at any subsequent points of contact through the project. And this just covers the expected points of contact, the notice of commencement. So we've prepared a notice. It will be issued later this month. Agency and ministry consultation will occur throughout the study as required. So, conservation authorities, ministries, as they're relevant to the project. We will have a public information center with a notice that will be published, and then either an open house or a virtual public information center, depending on the restrictions that might be in place still when we get to that stage of the project, hopefully in person. And then at the end of the project, we will have a notice of completion and a minimum 30-day public review period for any interested parties to review the documents and provide any further input if they hadn't had a chance to do so earlier in the study. And then, of course, just ongoing consultation throughout the project. If there are any questions, comments, concerns received, we'll make sure that we have open communication with anyone that is interested in the project. So that's a high-level overview of the master plan and what we're planning to complete. And as I mentioned, we're just in the early stages now, so we don't have a lot of details yet on what the outcome might be, but hopefully that provides you with some information on what we will be doing.
Thank you, Kelly and Aaron, for your presentation. If you can stop sharing the screen, Aaron, that'd be great. So we'll open this up for members of council for questions. And who's good? Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for Ms. Longworth, I suppose. So our last EA that we had done a number of years ago for the re-rating of our system, is that something that gets incorporated into this particular class EA, or is this one different? Do we start from the 900 and go up to our next rating level? How, these are obviously a kind of a process related item for any time we, looking for enhancements, but what, is this a complete start over, or do we use our last EA as well?
No, so we are definitely reviewing the documents that are available. So there's a previous EA for water supply in Drayton, and the previous EA as well for the wastewater treatment plant. So that is definitely part of the background documents. So we are going to incorporate all of the studies that have been done previously.
Good question, Council Martin. Further questions from council members? Not seeing any. Thank you both for coming on and presenting this. It's exciting that we have this project on their way, and we've got this master plan. It's something that certainly is needed in this community, and we look at this for the future. And we're looking at what we need to spend. I really like the idea of this, the capital spending over a period of time. It's what we have in our roads and bridges. And I think it's great to have this for the water, wastewater as well, and looking at that whole aspect of it. So we know what we're into and know what the rates are going to have to be. It gives us some good ideas of what our planning has to be and what we have to look for in funding. Because that funding is not always easy to get, and we don't always want to go the ratepayer. So we can obviously we can continue to look for funding options out of the province and feds to correspond to this plan as well, and we can shift and move if we have to, because we have a plan. We know what we're doing. If we didn't have a plan, we wouldn't be able to do this. So this is great that we're actually going this way. The question I have, you talked about, Kelly, you talked about media and the media that the lifespan of the media that's currently there. With that deterioration of that media correspond, as Councillor Martin was kind of alluding to, will that correspond with something that maybe adding in a new project, or say the MMBR, if we go that way? So if that media kind of dissipates away, then we have that opportunity to throw that in there?
Yes, it is. And maybe to add a little bit to respond to Councillor Martin's question before, definitely this master plan is just building on that Class EA that was done. There's a lot of good work done there by council, so we're building on it from that EA as well, so peer review. So just to remind everyone, the EA had recommended the Sager solution. So if we look to an alternate technology, so that's for nitrification, removal of ammonia, that could be covered in this rather than doing an individual amendment to that EA. We can cover that if we would, like to consider a different nitrification technology like MBBR. We can do that within the master plan and follow that process rather than an individual amendment to the EA. And then to your point as well, Mr. Mayor, is that absolutely the filter is used for phosphorus removal. So those are your existing filters. If we do that sample, we can determine, can your existing media, maybe with some rehabilitation or some work, last until, we do the next upgrade. So it's a different process than what MBBR is used, but we can look at, okay, in the next upgrade, if the media is good enough till then, can we replace it, say, with a disc filter or different media? And what is the timing of those repairs, right? And the upgrades based on the master plan. If we understand the condition and how much longer it's to be in service, we can make smart decisions about where money should be spent.
Great, thank you for that clarification. I'm still learning about the different media, so thank you for making sure that I know what I'm talking about when I do talk about it. Any other questions, comments from council members? Great. Thank you very much for Aaron and Kelly for both of you today with the presentation. I do have the recommendation here on that the Township of Mapleton Council received for information, SEMA Plus presentations, wastewater condition assessment and capital planning, and water and wastewater master plan for growth areas. I need a mover, please, and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Otten, seconded by Councillor. Okay, got all three of you. Perfect. So we'll go with Douglas. Thank you. Anybody opposed? No one opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And we're moving on to item 7.5, which is our next delegation, which is Crime Stoppers of Wellington. And we have Sarah Bowers-Peters here. Sarah, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I have a little update. I was invited to join you this evening by Mr. Wheeler, so I will just move right into my presentation if that's okay.
Go right ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. All right, so yes, having this opportunity to speak to you tonight is an opportunity to get you up to date on what Crime Stoppers has been doing. It's certainly been interesting times, but we've been able to navigate rather successfully, as hopefully you will see in this presentation. We've been active in the community for more than 30 years now, and as always, Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington wants to support residents, community organizations, and our local businesses to be active participants in keeping their neighborhoods safe through crime prevention, reporting, and resolution. And that's a long-winded way of saying that it's not just the responsibility of our police partners to resolve crime. Our members of the community can take action as well, thanks to the program known as Crime Stoppers. We believe that someone other than the criminal has information that can solve a crime, and no tip is too small. If someone thinks they might have information that could be helpful, bring it forward. We never know where an investigator is with their investigative process, and absolutely the smallest detail could lead to an arrest. The process is simple. You can call us at 1-800-222-TIPS, or more commonly in recent years, people can use our web tip option, which is through our website. You can see on the left, that's a screen capture of our website, www.csgw.tips. And if you click the red button that says report a crime here, the image on the right pops up, and that is an option to either free type or select from drop-down options within the platform to specify the information you are sharing. As you can see, there is no possible way for you to put your personal information like name or phone number. And that's because when you contact Crime Stoppers, you are anonymous. We don't want to know who you are. It's very important that tipsters are safe and their information is confidential. And we start that right here at the website and during the phone conversations by not having any contact information for our tipsters. So the way this works in particular is that this is information that you are providing to a portal in our website. It's not driven by email. So there is no way for us to know who it is that is providing the tip or where they are located. Now, you don't hear a lot about specific crimes that are resolved because of Crime Stoppers. So how do you know that Crime Stoppers is making a difference in your community? Well, we like to reference our statistics. So being founded back in 1988 and through to the end of last year, we've had almost 22,000 tips to the program. We've been able to assist with over 1,500 arrests, and to give some context, 723 break and enter occurrences have been resolved as a result of Crime Stoppers tipsters. Investigations from Crime Stoppers tips have recovered more than $37.6 million in drugs, personal property, and cash. We've cleared over 2,200 cases, and our board of directors, comprised of volunteers from the community, including our very own Councillor Craven, are able to authorize rewards to tipsters, and we've seen that as high as recently as $173,000 from our date of inception. So yes, we too were impacted by the pandemic. However, I'm very pleased to share with you that we didn't miss a day. We were advised that we would be transitioning to remote work, and we were taking tips throughout. We ended the end of the day one day and began our remote work the next. So that was really a seamless transition. However, our fundraisers were not as fortunate. We had to cancel or drastically modify our fundraisers because of the public health requirements, rightfully so, obviously. We focused on community engagement. We've pivoted to online presentations, exactly what we're doing right now, and they've been very well received, which is encouraging. It just shows that the public is still wanting to learn about Crime Stoppers and wants to be engaged in keeping their community safe. So to give you a snapshot of last year, we had 783 tips, which is remarkable because actually our 2019 numbers, that was our high watermark, and this is only 20 some tips off of the previous year. So again, with the amount of awareness and information being circulated about our public health crisis, we were still able to keep our messaging out there and keep the phone ringing and keep those tips coming in. So I'm very pleased with that number myself. We cleared 8 cases, and you may be underwhelmed by that number. However, I would encourage you to look at the next statistic there, which is over $71,000 was recovered in drugs, personal property, and cash. So we know that's a significant recovery for the number of cases that were cleared. We approved more than $2,000 in rewards from our board of directors. And I just wanted to give you a little update that so far in 2021, we've approved more than $2,000 in rewards this year, which means our public is more engaged. They're using the program more than ever before, and they're being more effective in stopping criminal activity in our communities. So whereas last year, we were topping out at just over $2,000 in approved rewards, we're already past that as of May this year. We're very active on social media, and if you're not following us on one of our platforms, I would encourage you to do so. This is a great way to keep up to date on what our Crime of the Weeks are, developments in the program, programming opportunities, as well as volunteer and other fundraising initiatives. So please take a moment and check out our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn platforms. There's a big misconception that Crime Stoppers is funded by taxation, which obviously is not the case. We're a not-for-profit organization that relies on donations from private citizens, organizations, local businesses, and of course our own fundraising activities. And again, all money required to support the program must be raised through individual and corporate support. That has been problematic in this past year. We lost our significant fundraiser is the mulch sales in the spring, which we lost completely last year. Just a bit of a modified event was held in Guelph and Mount Forest, but certainly not the numbers that we're used to seeing. We were able to do our shredding events in the fall in Mount Forest and Guelph, and those, pleasantly enough, were actually record-setting years for us. I don't know whether people just had a lot of time on their hands over the summer to get their documents together, or if they were just more aware of the concern of identity theft, or perhaps they just wanted to support Crime Stoppers. But we had tremendous support, and people were really excited to be out at a fundraiser and engaged with people in the community, all done, of course, physically distanced and completely safe. As I mentioned before, we are governed by a board of directors. These are civilians who donate their time and talents to our program. We have monthly meetings. Our board members also help maintain our partnerships with Wellington County OPP and Guelph Police Service. Of course, they approve the rewards that are paid to our tipsters, and they also raise the funds. So it's good that they have the final say. They're also responsible for increasing public awareness by promoting the program to their own network of contacts. You may be wondering how you can be a part of Crime Stoppers. Well, there's a number of ways to be engaged. You can look at perhaps having signage. We've got a number of road signs in the communities. Of course, we also have the one that comes to mind is the one in Alma, just at the south end there on the east side of the road, and having presence within the community between Crime Stoppers and an advertiser. You're also welcome to apply to become a volunteer board member or a volunteer at one of our fundraising activities. You can also sponsor a radio spot, help increase awareness within the community by helping us get our message on the radio. Booking presentations, we do a Crime Stoppers 101, a student presentation, number of opportunities and engagements that we are still doing, even though we have to do it remotely. Again, you can be part of us by helping spread our message on social media. We do have some people that like to have the decals on their vehicles, but the best way to be part of Crime Stoppers is by using the program. We always encourage people, if they feel so inclined, that they can reach out to our police partners, but we do know that for a number of reasons, people maybe don't want to be involved in the court or police process, and for that reason, Crime Stoppers is a great option for them. This past year, the board of directors have taken a serious stance on anti-racism and inclusivity. And this is something that we are reflecting in our social media, and in basically in everything that we're doing at Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington will be in an inclusive lens. I do want to share with you, we've got some great news from this past year that we received awards at both the provincial and international level. So on the left, you'll see our 2019 Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers Awards. And the one I want to draw your attention to there is actually the black plaque at the top center. And that is the Marla Moon Memorial Award of Excellence, which we have won 5 years in a row. So we're definitely getting recognition at the provincial level. On the right-hand side, you'll see 4 awards that are from Crime Stoppers International. So this is very exciting as well to see that the work we're doing in our local communities is getting international recognition. And the one I would draw your attention to there would be the second from the left, which is the Productivity Award. What that means is that the size of our program and the effectiveness of the work that we're doing, Crime Stoppers International felt that we deserve to be recognized for being very effective, for the amount of tips that we received in 2019, as well as the recovery of property, drugs, and cash. So the reason that we like to bring these forward and remind you that we are winning awards is because it helps establish faith in the program. The work that we're doing is being recognized, and it lets people know that they can have faith in their local program. We do have a couple of events. I'm going to exploit my opportunity here to let you know that we do have a couple of fundraisers coming up in the fall. And because it does take some time to get your special documents pulled together, if you are interested in protecting yourself from identity theft and you want to participate, there are 2 opportunities with the fall shredding events, September 11th in Guelph. And at this point in time, it's going to be Skyjack. I know they're doing a vaccine distribution at that location right now. However, we told them we needed the parking lot, so they're just going to get it all taken care of and get all the vaccinating done ahead of time for us so we can use their parking lot. Completely sarcastic there, folks. Right now, we are hoping it will be at Skyjack, but if there is a change, check our website for all the updated information. And of course, in Mount Forest, we're going to be there in October on the 2nd, again, a Saturday, and that's going to be at the Wellington North Fire Service location, Main Street North, Mount Forest. All righty, hopefully that has covered most of our activities for this past year. And once again, thank you so much for the opportunity to update everyone, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Sarah. As always, a good presentation from you. And I every time I see you, you always have another award you have to show. And you've been doing that for many years at County Council, and just it's amazing what Crime Stoppers in Wellington County, Guelph has done over the last number of years. And it's a lot attributed to the board, but to you personally, Sarah, because when you turned it around when you got in there. You've done an amazing job of turning Crime Stoppers around for Wellington and Guelph. So I do appreciate you and what you do. As for the shredding event, I have my stuff already being piled up. So, we'll be there in Mount Forest again to drop off some. And I appreciate having that shredding event to get rid of some of the old business files I have as well, which is really nice.
Perfect. So personal, small business, we're open for everything.
You are. And I know there's some questions from council, and we did have a question at our last council meeting, and I can't remember who brought it up, but it was about the human trafficking. Okay. And which council member brought that up? It was Councilor Martin. But Councilor Martin, do you want to ask your question? Do you remember it?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for coming, Sarah. This is great that you've taken the time to come out. I do have 2 questions. One is, directly related to the human trafficking, awareness. It jumped out at me just in the correspondence that came through last meeting. Human trafficking is not something that we necessarily associate with our area being rural, and we're not in the city. But we've also seen some fairly high profile media releases on sexual assault cases and stuff. How does Crime Stoppers, or how did this initiative come to be? Is this based on some input from your policing partners, or what kind of motivated this particular initiative? And then secondly, do you have any examples of how municipalities can be supportive of your organization? I know you kind of listed some ideas that may be more tailored towards private or individuals, but are there some ways that Mapleton, for example, could support your organization?
Well, if I may, through you, Mayor, I would like to answer your second question first, Councillor Martin. We welcome any opportunity to have any kind of support in any capacity, to be able to have decals on municipal vehicles, to have awareness in maybe, taxation notices, just to remind people about Crime Stoppers, whether it's the phone number and website, or if we're having a fundraising initiative to help increase awareness. If there's ever an opportunity to post additional signage, and I know that there's always, such growth in Mapleton, and there's people coming from new communities and relocating into rural areas and may not be aware of how active we are in Guelph Wellington with our Crime Stoppers program. So I would challenge and say, I'm open to anything. And if there's something that you are looking to develop within the municipality, if there's a way that Crime Stoppers can fit in that, let's talk about how we can do that, because we've been very creative in how we partner with our branding and our messaging, and it's been well received. So I don't think there's really any one way. I think it can be unique to Mapleton, but I do know that we have been able to do things like decals and other signage partnerships in other municipalities, and that could be something to start off with. Did that answer your question there? Excellent. As far as human trafficking, I became aware of human trafficking in around 2016. And before that time, pretty much had the same misconception that many people did, was that it's something that happened in other countries, or it was something in urban areas. After a couple of training sessions with our friends at Victim Services Wellington, I quickly learned that not only is this not a rural or only an international crime, it's actually happening in our backyards, and it's happening more common than we believe. And by not talking about it, or feeling it's inappropriate to talk about, because it's a pretty drastic type of crime. It's actually a number of crimes rolled into one particular act or series of acts. There's the physical, there's the sexual, there's the emotional, psychological, there's drug addiction. So it all kind of lumps together into human trafficking. So once we realized that it was happening in our communities, the board of directors was more than supportive to say that we would use our platform at Crime Stoppers to educate and create awareness and spread the word within our area. Most recently, we've partnered with Wellington County OPP and Victim Services Wellington for a provincial grant that allowed us to do a 2-year awareness campaign that targets human trafficking as well as sexual assault. Because again, we know that these crimes are happening. We're getting tips on human trafficking at Crime Stoppers. We are getting tips from people saying it's happening to people within Wellington County. So the emphasis on getting this grant was to increase awareness in rural communities. And I know that people are feeling there's a disconnect there. Like, it's not happening, downtown Drayton. I don't see it happening, in Fergus or Mount Forest or Erin. The fact of the matter is, the commodity, the product, the individuals are the ones that are being groomed and engaged from our communities. So while the crime may not be taking place on our main streets, the victims are definitely coming from our neighborhoods, and that's being facilitated by the internet. We know that grooming over the past year, with our young people being online so much, and the mental health issues over this past year, as well as the breakdown of our social connections, has been problematic, and it's made it just a real great opportunity for traffickers to reach out to young people. So we're really targeting this messaging not just to the youth and making sure they understand what's happening when they have interactions online, but also to the people around them, to say, You need to check in with our kids more often. You need to know what's on their phones and on their devices, because there are conversations happening right now, and it may be awkward to sit down with your son or your daughter and ask them who they're engaging with online, but it's going to be absolutely devastating if you find out they're being trafficked. So better to have the preventative conversation now than to deal with the consequences of this horrific victimization after the fact. So it's not going to be something we stop talking about. And I'm really glad to see our board of directors is supportive of this messaging. And as I say, we're partnered with Victim Services, who tell us exactly how many people, I believe, and this is just off the top of my head, and Liz Kent would be the person to directly quote, but I believe it's over 40 individuals last year were serviced by Victim Services for human trafficking related supports. So even though they're not necessarily going to police, or it's not necessarily being reported to Crime Stoppers, the fact of the matter is the victims are reaching out for supports. So we need to have the conversations about it and get awareness going.
Thank you, Sarah, for those answers. And wow, thank you for that information on human trafficking. And thank you, Councilor Martin, for that really good question. I know you asked it last council meeting. I'm glad we had Sarah here to speak to it. It is something that we all need to be aware of, and to give you this platform, Sarah, to speak about it, I think is a great thing as well. So get that message out for people that will come online, that are online now or will come on later to listen to this presentation. Further questions, Councilor Craven? You got a question?
Through you, your worship, to Sarah. When you come to Crime Stoppers with a tip, you're not only anonymous, but we have no idea where you live or where the crime was committed. Everything is totally anonymous. And that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, I think you mean where the tip comes from. Hopefully we know where the crime was committed.
That we do want to know what. Yeah, absolutely. Further questions, comments? Seeing none, thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on, and congratulations to Crime Stoppers for all those awards again, and for the board as well. Very good.
Thank you, sir. As I leave, if I could encourage you, just on the human trafficking note, check out www.htnwc.com. That's the web page for the new initiative that we're partnered with OPP and Victim Services. So sorry about that. I just got to promote the grant.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Take care. So I do have a recommendation here that Township of Mapleton Council received for information on Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington Sarah Bowers Peters presentation update on the Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington Work and Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative. Moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Ottens. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8.1, we have the Economic Development Committee meeting, June 7th, 2021. The recommendation here is that the draft minutes of the Mapleton Economic Development Committee meeting held on 7th of June, 2021 be received for information. Moved by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor. Thank you, Councilor Douglas. And Ali, do you want to speak to this?
Right, my camera is being silly. They're just the minutes from our meeting, our latest meeting. We kind of took a hiatus during COVID, and we started back up this year, meeting with the Economic Development Committee again. And it's pretty explanatory in the minutes there. We did do a photo contest, and you can see on our website there's been some photos updated. We got, I think, 15 different people that entered, and over, I believe it was 60 different photos submitted, so or more than that.
Thank you, Ali. Questions or comments? Seeing none. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Moving on to the next item, we have the Building Department report. Recommendation that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information, Building Department report BD 2021-08, dated July 13, 2021, regarding June month end and 2021 year to date. Mover, please, Councilor Thank you. So it's Councillor Douglas and Councillor Ottens. Patty, do you have anything to add for this?
No, Mayor, I do not have anything to add to this report. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, anybody opposed? And that is carried. And moving on to the next item, item 9.1.2, we have a recommendation that Township of Mapleton Council receive Building Department Report BD 2021-09 dated July 13, 2021 regarding building department staff complement increase. And further, that council approve the outline plan to increase building department staff complement. And further, that council approves the creation of a new office space using building department reserve funds. Patty?
I really don't have a lot further to add. Basically, I mean, we're keeping day-to-day operations moving, but there's a lot more we could be doing. We haven't been dealing with a lot of things like the records retention bylaw, purging old permit files. MPAC has added a new layer of work in that we have to upload to their work site every single set of plans for every permit we issue. And they want those after they've been redlined and signed. So they all have to be scanned in and uploaded. And of course, we want to make sure that we keep up on that for assessment purposes. So in addition to the regular duties of reporting to StatsCan and Terrion, we have the bigger MPAC submissions to do. There's just a lot more we could do to keep up. And with the phones being so busy and us being on the road so much, I just think it's time we need to get more help.
Thank you, Patty. So I have read the recommendation. I need to move her in a second and then we'll go to questions. Moved by Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Douglas and Councillor Ottens. Thank you. So Councillor Martin, sorry, Councillor Ottens, you have questions.
Yes, just to clarify, there is, through you, Mayor Davidson, there is enough funds within the building department to cover this staff member and the renovations needed to accommodate this person?
Through you, Mayor Davidson. Well, currently we're sitting with over 100,000 in surplus to date on this year. Our transfers to reserve over the last number of years have steadily been enough to cover that salary. And as far as the renovation portion, the reserve balance is very healthy. We're just south of about 800,000. So to move the counter up, order the new office furniture and whatever electrical and IT services, there would be no issue around us being able to afford.
Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Ottens.
Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Craven?
Through you, Your Worship, to Patty. Approximately how much time would it take to process a building permit, having to deal with MPAC now too?
That's a very good question, Councillor Craven, through you, Mayor. I tried to work through that, but the projects are all so uniquely different and diverse, and the number of inspections, the amount of time it takes to review a set of plans can vary drastically. Sometimes you can have a deck that time you go back and forth with somebody submitting it can take as long as it takes to review a house. So I kind of tried to work through that, you know, the average single family dwelling. Well, that depended on how many inspections you had to redo. I really couldn't come up with a number for you, Dennis. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Further comments and questions? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the recommendation that Patty's pushed forward. I think you know, the numbers that that have been showing with permits and, you know, over the last, you know, number of years that I've been involved here, your department's certainly quite busy and growing. So I think if this you know, supports you know, maintaining that level of service for turnaround time, then I'd be supportive. I am curious for your new digs on where you're going to go or what this expansion looks like. What's your vision for that? Where does that look like? And I'm just curious more than anything.
Through you, Mayor. What I'm thinking is where Amanda is currently sitting in front of the CAO's office, there's a reception counter there. If we pull that forward in line with the door, and put the style of counter that we have downstairs, upstairs, and put person behind there. That would be the frontline person that would field most of the phone calls, book inspections, deal with the first visit with the clients. And then Amanda would still be behind to back that person up, but she could go on to more of the building tech role. She's already passed the legal exam. She's got some more background. She's good with the zoning. She could kind of take some of that preliminary review, do roll file review, and when it gets to plans review, we'd be a little farther along than we are now, or we're doing that all ourselves. So that space would be there. That person would be the first point of contact. Shouldn't take up too much room. I've checked if we go to a 7-foot desk space, it will actually make us compliant with the accessibility requirements down that hallway as well. So I tried to figure out how to put an accessible counter in. I couldn't figure it out, but there is one across the lobby in the foyer there. So I think we'll have to go just with a straightforward reception type counter, but that's my vision.
Thank you, Patty. And Councilor Martin, you got a follow-up?
Yeah, so would that eliminate the need for members of the public to be going down the stairs? Like, it would improve the accessibility, like access to your department on a daily basis, where people would be able to just stop at that front desk?
Through you, Mayor. We haven't seen you in the office lately, obviously. We are already upstairs. We are down the new wing. So Amanda's already sitting upstairs, and Allie and I switched offices, and Rick and Janet switched offices. So, and Mohammed jumped in with Wanda. So Kristen's across the hall there. So we're already upstairs.
I'll crawl back in my hole then. Welcome to upstairs.
just wait till we open up again, then just come see us.
The chief runs hot. He needed to be in the basement where it's cooler anyway. Any further questions, comments? I also support this, Councillor Martin. It's Patty, you and your team have done excellent work over the last number of years. And if you look at just the numbers of this year alone, and if that trend continues, you'll be quite busy. You're going to need that extra hand. So I read the recommendation moved by Councillor Douglas and seconded by Councillor Ottens. Before we go to vote, any other questions, comments? Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed. That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 9.2.1, we have the AODA compliance audit. Would that be you, Mr. Wheeler, or is that Mr. Barron?
That would be me, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
So during all this COVID, I guess there was some downtime at the province, and they decided to audit the township for AODA compliance. I'll be the first to admit we weren't perfect as it relates to our AODA activities. However, there's a lot of things that we were doing very, very well. The two things that they identified was the return to work process and an update to our multi-year accessibility plan. So we've asked Mr. Ilott to help us with that and investigate what can be done. And he was very, very helpful and integral on bringing us back up to par on those two items. So now we have an updated return to work process, and Mr. Ilott worked with all of staff to creating or update the accessibility plan. So glad to report that we are completely compliant now with AODA. We received a letter stating so. So it's kind of a feather in our cap. And Mr. Ilott is on the line. And Steve, if you have anything to add to that, I think it would be helpful.
Go ahead, Steve. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Through you, Your Worship. So to Manny's point, I think there was some great stuff that we were doing, whether that be the early and safe return to work program. The compliance officer did share with us some best practices in order to kind of help us improve that process. We will be adopting that, and that along with the customer service standard and some of the other AOTA policy changes is going to be communicated to staff likely in August, early September as we update that. The multi-year accessibility plan, of course, is included in the report. And I believe we're asking council to approve that multi-year accessibility plan. And once endorsed and approved by council, that document then would be going onto our website and being updated. They did kindly point out, of course, that our current program was a little bit behind. So we're happy to have it updated, and that would be published to the website once approved by council. And then just maybe a couple other points, as you read through the key accomplishments, their mandate is really to bring front and center most appropriately, what are we doing with accessibility and what are our plans going forward? And as you can see, worked with staff to kind of bring to the front of mind a lot of the different projects that we're doing and staff are doing every day, really as part of their role. To Patty's earlier point, the building department has now moved upstairs. That's a high volume turnover department. When we get back open, it's going to be more accessible. The stuff that we're doing in parks, whether that be accessibility swings, the roads with the tactile pads, there's a bunch of things that we're doing. And I think this has just really helped us to bring it front of mind and make sure that we are indeed compliant and putting out there that it is top of mind for council and staff.
Thank you, Mr. Eilert. We do have a recommendation here for council that the CAO's report CL 2021-09 dated July 13, 2021 regarding Mapleton's AODA audit be received, and further that council endorse the updated multi-year accessibility plan as presented. Moved by Councillor Douglas, second by Councillor Martin. Thank you. Questions for Mr. Barron or Mr. Eilert? Mr. Douglas.
Again, not so much a question, but I just want to commend everyone who worked on this report, especially like the key accomplishments. You see some of these projects undertaken and not really understanding some of the AOTA components to it. So it's nice to see it summarized and really, tie it all back together with how AOTA is a part of some of these projects.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Other comments, questions from council? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next item up on is 9.3.1. We have the recommendation that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information report FR 2021-03, including a 6-month January to June 2021 Fire Department PowerPoint present summary. I'll turn this over to the chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. Just thought it was time that we updated council on what the fire department has been doing as far as different aspects of our department. So the actual report should be from end of November till the 1st of June. That's the 6 months for the fire marshal reporting. So that's what I use. So I'm going to try to share the screen here. Hopefully it works. Yeah. I'm not getting the right one, am I? No. We'll try that
There
one.
you go, chief. Yep,
Okay,
there,
good.
chief.
Okay, thanks. So what we want to go through is all the things that the fire department is doing. So we have a mission statement, total number of calls, our response for the year, our summary of the kind of calls we're getting, number of firefighters we presently have, how many recruits we have, number of hours we take on training, the training we've done through COVID time. We've changed into platoons through the training in COVID, and a record of our attendance, the topics we covered during the training, update the COVID vaccinations that our firefighters have been doing, and the summer training for July that's coming up. So we have an overview of the past and present with some of the achievements we've had with the years of service and a couple of retirements that we've had recently. And then we're going to just touch on the goals we've had in past months and working on the future. So just, are you getting one screen or a bunch of screens here?
No, you're moving on. You're at the mission statement right now.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So our mission statement hasn't changed too much. It's the same thing we've had for at least 20 years. The only thing has changed is that the fire marshal's office has put in order that we try to work on public education, fire prevention, and then fire suppression and medical emergency calls, because we take care of the public education and the fire safety and fire prevention. We will reduce the amount of calls that we go to, and it's been proven over the years how that has worked so well. So we're also going to continue to embrace the challenges and the opportunities for the future. Next. So total number of calls we've had for from December last year till May of this year. So actually from December to the 1st of June, pretty well. We had 43 calls. So in an average year, you get 153, 179, 177, 189. During the last 2 years, the numbers have gone down, especially with COVID. And the first half of this year, we've had 43 calls up till the 1st of June. So there is, with COVID and the ambulance doing more of the calls, medical calls, the accidents have been coming down, especially with the lights at Parker and the S-Bend. That's something we've really noticed a big difference of, because we used to get about one call a month to either one of those intersections, and now we've had the one minor call at the S-Bend, but other than that, we've eliminated those calls. So it's been going the right way. So there's kind of a trend of what those numbers mean overall. To summarize the kind of calls we're getting, so property fires, we've got 28%. Medical calls, we've got 21%. False alarm calls, that can be COR or smoke alarms, 14%. Other responses, which would be mutual aid, helping another department out, or other things that don't come into these four categories, would be 2.5%. And then rescue calls, which is car accidents, fire accidents, those kind of calls. Rescue calls is about 1/3 of all the calls we get. As for the number of firefighters we got, right presently now in Drayton, we've got 15 firefighters, 14 in Moorfield. We keep 4 captains each station. Right now we have 4 recruits in Moorfield, 2 in Drayton. We have 1 deputy chief each station and 1 lieutenant each station. So we are a little bit more than what we have right now. We do have firefighters leaving that have moved away or taken jobs somewhere else. So that's why the recruits numbers is up a little bit, because when they're fully trained in February, they'll take the spots of the people that are leaving the end of this year. So it's been kind of a turnover we haven't been expecting before, but it's a little heavier than normal. And they're getting through recruit training really well and starting the physical part of that in August. The 6 recruits started attending practice and training. They did the written exam in June recently. And now starting this month, they're going to be doing the practical testing, moving around the county, testing in different areas every 2 weeks. And then the idea is that they'll complete the program in December with OFM training in January. So they'll be ready to ride the trucks in February, if all goes according to plan. So total hours we spent with the whole fire department for the 6 months is 929 hours. That's been a little different during COVID. We did take 1 month off January last year because of the COVID was getting pretty heavy, and we didn't want to get big groups together. So we did take that month off, and we reduced our summertime training also. So during COVID, what we had to change is all our firefighters, of course, were required to wear a mask during training, keep 6 feet apart, which is regular everywhere. We changed our training from Tuesday nights to Thursday nights. So every officer did training, every training officer did training, was doing a Tuesday, Thursday, 2 weeks in a row, to keep the firefighter numbers down and divide everything to 4 instead of 2. So that kept a group of 5 from Moorfield and a group of 5 from Drayton at each training session. And so that way we kind of kept the groups down and spread apart, and got through most things that we did with the external training. Most of our firefighters had the first dose of the vaccine. Majority have had their second dose. We have certificates for everyone that's been vaccinated. To my knowledge, we only have one person that's not had any vaccines at all. So we moved into 4 groups of platoons for training and practice purposes. The platoons were created in June 2020 during the pandemic to minimize the exposure to large groups and keep with the COVID restrictions. Now, the OFM, the Fire Marshal Advisor, advised us back in October last year that fire departments and police departments were exempt from numbers doing training. So we could train any numbers we wanted to, we felt safe with, but they wanted to just caution that if we get a whole bunch of members together and we have COVID within, that it could make a whole station or a whole department not able to respond. So we chose to take the safe route and go to smaller groups. And so far it's worked well. So these are the subjects we have covered during training going back to May last year. Water pumping, extrications, or went over the organizational process. We do fitness testing every year. And that means we make sure we are fit enough to do the functions and not have a doctor's certificate. Technical rescue, we did farm rescue last year. We've done recruit training in October and March this year. Critical incident stress management, we covered that with everybody. Off-road rescue, defibrillator training. We have new Zoll defibrillators in all the trucks now. So we are running with the ambulance as Zoll in Wellington County. So we have the same defibrillators they do. So we can train together and use the same equipment. We went over incident command, team building, reading smoke, ventilation, and went to all of our water sources in the country and did hydrant training in town. So 45 of our 47 firefighters have received their first dose. And actually, that's now, as of today, is 46. And 23 out of 47, and that actually number is 27 now, have received their second dose. And we have the certificates on file here to prove that. So 49 of our fire department is fully vaccinated. And all the certificates have been put into our new software, like I mentioned. So summer training, we have every summer now tried to reduce down the training because of holidays and that. So we are going to 1 training session per station for each one of the months in July and August. Our weekend truck checks, which the crews do in platoons, are done in 5 groups over a 4 truck rotation. And that's things we've carried that on always as part of MTO rules and administrative labor rules. And so we just kept with that. And then July training, we're doing the fitness testing, which we did last year, and we keep all of our people doing a bunch of functions that they have to do within 15 minutes to prove that they're physically able to do it. And that's what they're doing tonight, actually, at the fire hall, and we're getting through that for July. As far as achievements, we always had our yearly Christmas banquet with the township and awarded people 5, 10, and 15, 20 year. We've now missed that for the last 2 years. So I just wanted to update everybody. These have not been presented. They're on the wall with the little stickers on them or little buttons on them telling how many years. But these people have received their 5 and 10 year. Mike Roundtree and Dave Crack have been 5 years. Rich Colwell, Adam Rosema, Cody Heimers, Jim and Jeremy Gross are 10 years. Jeff Wing just received 20. Barry Heimers, Jeremy Moore, Scott Moore, and Jim Gross just passed 30 years recently. So those are quite the accomplishments those guys have done, and really proud of the group that stuck with us and do throughout the community still perform the duties they have to perform. So we will at an appropriate time get these done in front of our group and award these awards to them. During last year, we had Derek Webster as firefighter, was on for 5 years and had moved on to different things in his job and that, and the different interests he had socially on the agenda. So he left, and so we appreciate his 5 years, and we got an award for him. And also Dennis Craven, Councilor Dennis Craven, has 12 years. He retired because our dispatching got taken over by a full dispatch from Guelph. Really appreciate the time Dennis was at the fire hall every time on that radio and doing a great job for it. And that service kind of has changed throughout the county to a full dispatching service out of Guelph. And so and that 12 years of service is only with us as dispatcher after he retired the first time from Maryborough Fire Department. So he'd have to update us on the years he had there. But it's a lot of years between being a firefighter and being a dispatcher for Dennis. So we really appreciate that. So events throughout the community, we had a virtual trip during COVID. So we had a school teacher come in and we went to the fire hall, and the kids at home on grade kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 2, I think 3, were watching from home on fire prevention, and a walk through the fire hall and meeting Sparky, the fire dog. And we had the opportunity recently to a young boy on River Run was celebrating a birthday. He was unable to get out, and unable to get out a few birthday parties, I guess. So we thought we'd do a drive-by and had that set up to do that. And then the other few pictures are just some training we do with pumping at the river and pumping, drafting from the river and pumping on back into the river. A few more training pictures. We've done the extrication training in groups of 4 and 5 and that to keep kind of spread out. Also doing pump operations and water spraying at different training episodes we had there. So that's kind of my brief overview of what we've been doing, just to keep everybody updated. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody had if they had anything.
Thanks, Chief. I did read the recommendation. I do need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Craven. Thank you. Questions, comments to the chief? Not seeing any. All right. Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk, did we lose Councillor Martin again?
Your worship, yeah. His work is, he just texted, his work is getting extremely busy and he had to sign off.
Thank you. Item number 10, we have approval of bylaws. We have recommendation here that bylaws number 2021-044 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a site plan agreement between Mervyn Behringer and Diane Behringer and the corporation of the Township of Mapleton. And we have item 2021-045 being a bylaw to authorize mayor and clerk to execute a site plan agreement between Manessa Frey Martin and the corporation of Township of Mapleton. Be hereby ready first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. Any questions or comments from council on these? Yeah, I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Douglas, Councillor Ottens, thank you. Anybody opposed? And that's carried, thank you. The correspondence for council's information, we have a number of items there, 10 of them. Anybody wish to speak to any of these items? Councillor Douglas.
Yes, just wondering, the correspondence from Wellington North on the mayor and councillor remuneration, there's just a table. Just wondering, are they going through a review? Is that what that that table is for?
Aaron?
Excuse me, I can
Okay,
speak
Mr.
to that
Wheeler?
if you want, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
That's exactly right, Councillor Douglas. They were doing a review, and at the end of it, they were kind enough to send us a copy. So I thought it was worthwhile to, rather than let it die on the shelf, I thought it was worthwhile to share with council.
It was interesting to see the comparatives they used on there. I think that's a lot more comparatives than we used when we did ours in 2019. Any further comments and questions on these? Councillor Craven?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that correspondence from Tay Township. I'd like to support their motion regarding provincial funding for capital for the hospitals. Having spent a number of years on the Palmerston Mount Forest Hospital Board, I know how hard it is for the hospitals to get their capital fund together, and they get no help from the province at all. And if we could get some help for the hospitals on their capital projects, it would be a great asset for them.
All right, so Councillor Craven wants to bring that up for discussion. Anything else? Okay, Councillor Craven, it's all right if we bring that up to discussion at next council meeting?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
All right, we'll bring that up for discussion next council meeting. Mr. Wheeler? Item 12.3.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay. That'll be all. So we'll move on to the notices of motion. We'll move on to item 13.1, the notice of motion by Councillor Douglas, the recommendation moved by Councillor Douglas that the Township of Mapleton staff review options for traffic calming measures in the vicinity of River Run Road and Andrews Drive West. That Township staff prepare a report back to council at a future meeting to discuss the merit and options of traffic calming in this area. Moved by Councillor Douglas. I need a seconder, please. Councillor Ottens, thank you. Councillor Douglas, go ahead.
Yeah, I've just received a few pieces of correspondence, email and verbal, just from residents in the area about the high rate of speed of, it's not a large volume of traffic, but there's some very high rates of speed. River Run is about 1 kilometer from end to end, pretty open with gentle curves, and you can get up a lot of speed. And then Andrews coming off Wellington Street comes down the hill around a bend, and there's just been a lot of chatter about the speed, and with the kids playing, kids from across town come and bring their skateboards and scooters and come down the hills and stuff, and it seems like it's a bit of an accident waiting to happen. So I just thought I would bring that forward.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. It's I know the area well. There isn't much stopping people going down that road pretty quickly, but it's also something that happens throughout the township. I know that's something that we're dealing with in Alma as well, with people using Nesbitt as a raceway at times. We see it also in Moorfield. Thoughts from other council members?
I would definitely support this. I'm very concerned about these safety things on the road because the kids out playing on the road, and we certainly don't want any of them getting hit with a car or anything else.
Councilor Ottens?
Yes, thank you. Through you, your worship. I was going to piggyback or agree with what you said. I wonder if this could be part of a broader safety study, given the issues we have in Alma, and we want the crosswalk put back in Moorfield as well. If we could put it all together as, instead of all these individual requests, if we could put it together as one large, I'm not sure how you traffic safety study throughout Mapleton through the different problem areas. I'm sure there's a few more. One thing that I've found affects me when I'm driving that slows me down is those, I'm not sure, I mentioned it to you just off, it's those little posts that stand in the middle of the road, and when you approach them that they say slow down, and so I'm kind of wondering what those are called, and that we could maybe look into installing some of those in some of these streets.
Yeah, there's a number of options. The traffic calming options is that are out there. I know there's a number of policies. I've had conversations with the mayors of Center Wellington, as well as the mayors of Guelph and Massa, but they have traffic calming policies. Mr. Barron and I had a chat about traffic calming, and I agree with you, Councillor Ottens, that we could probably look at this more. I understand where Councillor Douglas is going. He's looking at this as he's gotten some issues around this area, but it's issues that I believe we have throughout the township. So I like the idea of going forward with this, but I personally would like to see that the Township of Mapleton staff create a traffic calming policy for the entire township, so we don't have to go from one road to the next road for every complaint. It could be a policy put in place. I know that Guelph and Massa, and I think it's Springs, I can't remember the name of the municipality I read this week. They have a complaint program where the citizens can actually put in, it's online, and they just put in the complaint, and then the staff already have a guideline to follow in order to look at that complaint and see if it's merit or not. So I tend to agree with Councilor Douglas. We do need to look at this, but I want to go further than this one road. I want to look at all the roads and throughout the township with a policy. So I think that's where you were heading as well, Councillor Ottens, the same idea.
Yep, yeah, for sure. And then investigate the different options. Should it be stop signs, yield signs, the traffic posts, speed bumps, whatever, like there's different things that work in different areas. And I think that's the sort of thing we have to investigate, crosswalks, all of it.
And we have to remember
If
that.
you ever go to Zares in Listowel, they have some nasty speed bumps in front of their store. And that will make anybody slow down.
Yeah, Mr. Craven, that's speed bumps are generally not used on roadways. They're not recommended for roadways. Speed humps are, which are a little bit bigger, or the rubber
I realize that.
I think Mr. Bettina would have some knowledge in the background, especially when it comes to the Ontario traffic manuals as well, of what is allowed and not allowed on the roadways within the township, all municipalities for that matter. So do we have I know we have the recommendation here, the Township of Mapleton staff review options for traffic calming measures in the vicinity of River Run Road and Andrews Drive. And this would council be all right with amending that so that we include all the township as in a traffic calming policy? Mr. Douglas, Councilor Douglas, this is your recommendation. What are your thoughts? And of course, when you look at a traffic calming policy, to look at all roads, including River Run Road and Andrews Drive.
I'm just wondering what anticipated timeline of looking at a master policy.
Mr. Bettina, Mr. Barron.
Through your worship, clearly we knew this was coming, so we've done some background research already. You know, to do a proper study, we have a fairly big township. I don't want to promise something that we can't deliver. So if I may, can we answer that exact question on timelines and activities in the August meeting, so that we have a better idea of what we can offer?
Yeah, that should be fair. I need to get the feel for council whether we want to go ahead with the recommendation that's on the floor, or do we want to amend it to something that Councillor Ottens was alluding to. Councillor Craven?
I think we should go with the amended one that we do the whole township. If there's 2 or 3 problem areas, maybe we could do something with them a little sooner than the whole study would show.
Okay. So with councilors' indulgence, can we modify this recommendation then that states that the Township of Mapleton staff create a traffic calming policy for council's approval? Would that be, Mr. Clerk, would that be allowable to change it to that?
Well,
Or is that a whole
certainly,
new recommendation?
certainly if you want to see if you can get a seconder for that, you know, I suppose a friendly amendment, but otherwise you'll have to vote on that first recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Douglas, it's your recommendation. You're the one that put it on the floor. Would you be approving of changing it to that, or do you want to stick to the original?
I think it's probably prudent because I think I know where I'll go anyway, so may as well change it.
Okay, Councillor Ottens, you're okay with the change then? So the mover and seconder will stay the same, Mr. Wheeler? And we'll make it that the Township of Mapleton staff create a traffic calming policy for council's approval. Further comments and questions then from council on this recommendation? All right, anybody opposed? That's carried. The next recommendation we have here that's submitted by Councillor Martin. Mr. Wheeler, Councillor Martin is not here. Do we put this off the next meeting when he's here to speak to it?
I believe you should see if you can get a mover.
A mover to put it off, sir?
No, a mover to put it on the table.
All right. We do have a recommendation here that Township of Mapleton explore alternative methods of voting for the next municipal election, and further that staff prepare a report for council. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor, thank you, Douglas and Ottens. All right. We have no one to speak to it because Councillor Martin's not here. Does anybody want to speak to this? I know where Councillor Doug or Martin is probably going. He's looking at Mr. Wheeler to do a little work, come back with a report for us to see what alternatives are out there and how that would affect. Mr. Wheeler, is that how you take this?
That's exactly how I've taken it. I've started the process of getting an outline together. Of course, the usual method of voting is just walking in. There's 3 alternative methods: mail, internet, and phone, but certainly I can have something for you at the next meeting.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Wheeler?
No, I think it's self-explanatory and I think it's a good idea.
All right. Anybody opposed? So we'll carry that then. Thank you. And the next one we have here submitted by Councillor Craven is that the Township of Mapleton Council is not in favor of the Highway 6 bypass going through Alma on Wellington Road 7 and Wellington Road, County Road 17. So this is moved by Councillor Craven. I need a seconder, please. Councillor Douglas, thank you. Hey, Councillor Craven, you're up.
Okay, there's several reasons really for this, and some of them were outlined by Amanda and James earlier. Traffic, all the traffic, the turning at the corner, and the danger on Mueller's lot. But part of the problem is too is that some of them are using Nesbitt Street, but also there's a lot of noise from the trucks, especially the ones that are coming into town using their Jake brakes. And they're a very loud type of air brake that is easier on their brake system than using the regular brakes for trucks. So combined with that, the noise and the safety of the kids, the extra traffic on 17 especially, because of the kids going across to go to the school, go to the park, and for the seniors going across there to go to the park, there's just an awful lot more traffic and just not safe to cross that road. I know a lot of the people from Nesbitt drive their kids to school because it's not safe crossing 17. I don't know if we oppose this, they're going to say, well, where would you put it then? And I don't know where else it could go unless you take it straight through Alma, and you really don't want to go to Parker and go north with it, because then that goes right into Arthur. So I'm not sure what an alternative would be to not go through Alma. I do believe that Mayor Linton was contacted by somebody about this, and his comment to them was that, oh, well, we'll send the traffic through Alma because Fergus is more important. So I really don't think that Alma deserves to have all this extra traffic there.
Thank you, Councillor Craven. Other comments and questions from council? Nobody else? I would like to make a friendly amendment to this, Councillor Craven, that the Township of Mapleton Council is not in favor of the Highway 6 alternative route, but that's what it's called right now, is an alternative route, or a permanent bypass. So I'd like to add those words because it's the permanent bypass would be something that's in the Wellington County Roads Master Plan they're looking at right now, is create a permanent bypass. So I would like to have the friendly amendment of alternative route or a permanent bypass. Would that be suitable to Councillor Craven?
Yep.
And Councillor Douglas? Would you be okay with that change? All right. Any further comments and questions?
Your worship.
Go ahead, Ms. Barron.
And I mean this with all due respect to Councillor Craven. I'm just a little bit uncomfortable with with us saying that the mayor for Sunny Wellington said that it's best for Fergus, so let's just do it through Alma. This is a recording, and I want to. I think we need to be careful on that. If we didn't hear it ourselves, maybe we shouldn't say it, and almost would like to retract that if possible.
Yes.
It's already out there, Mr. Barron. It's hard to retract, but thank you for the comments. Duly noted. Anybody wishing to speak to this any further? Then I'll call the question. Anybody opposed? That's carried then. Thank you. We do have item number 13.4, which is another for next council meeting, another notice of motion for next council meeting that's there. Other business, item number 15. Anybody have other business to speak to? I do have just one piece of business. As you recall from last meeting, Mr. Barron and myself, we lobbied with our MPP and our MP regarding funding for water, wastewater, something out there. And the response back we got, there was nothing out there. Yesterday, we received an email back from the Minister of Infrastructure, the Federal Minister of Infrastructure, which steered us in the direction of the Provincial Minister of Infrastructure to look for funding through the province. Both Mr. Barron and I were a little confused by that, being that, you know, we've got a lot of it's federal money. And so today we get a letter from the Minister of Infrastructure of Ontario, and there is now funding available that we can apply for water, not wastewater, but water. So we are, Mr. Barron and I had a chat today, and Mr. Barron's already had a chat with SEMA, and we're going to apply for, we do have other water. It's going to be too late for our water tower because we're already in that, and you can't you can't receive funding after you've already done the project. And of course, this funding won't be coming to fruition until next year. So we have other infrastructure, water infrastructure needs that need to pay for. So we are going to apply for that, for those pieces. So hopefully we can apply up to $5 million, and hopefully we can get a bunch of cash we're going to show the need, show that we're, you know, as Mr. Barron and I talked today, we're already showing that we are already proactive in this. We already have a plan. It's a very short timeline. It's a good thing that we actually have a plan, because it just opened on July 13th, and you have to have submissions in by September 9th, including everything. So once again, the province is giving you a very short time frame, and if we're not on the ball already, we wouldn't have anything in place for putting this funding proposal together. So SEMA is already working on it as of today, after Mr. Barron had a conversation with him. Mr. Barron, do you have anything to add?
Through your worship, no, probably as soon as Kelly left her delegation, she's likely working on the application. It's will likely be for the reservoir and the upgraded pumps for the water system. So they're on it, and I guess that's all I can say. We're going to follow up very shortly and see what we can do.
Perfect. So that's good news for us. Councillor Ottens?
No, I have another business item too.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say that our family is doing the sunflower thing again this year. So if anybody is interested in coming, it's a one-day only thing on August 14, all day. And that's a Saturday. And all the funds raised will be going to Palmerston Hospital, since they haven't been able to hold their traditional fundraisers for the last 2 years. The gala is a big one for them. So that's where the money is going to go. So it can be accessed through Facebook, and otherwise contact me if you want more information.
Thank you, Councillor Ottens. A lot of fun last year going through the sunflowers with family and friends. It was well attended last year, if I remember as well. It's very hard to get spots. And the money going towards the hospital is a good spot to put it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's all COVID friendly. It was last year too, and we still managed to almost put 800 people through over 2 days. And so this year we're looking, it'll be a little looser rules, but it's still all going to be within the public health guidelines.
And if I remember correctly, last year you had, was it the Kinsman there cooking the barbecue? And
yep, they'll be there again.
Awesome. Have a nice sausage. Other items, other business for anybody? Okay, we'll just move on down then. We don't have a closed session. The confirmatory bylaw is item number 17.1. That bylaw number 2021-046 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Mapleton be hereby read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Craven, Councillor Ottens, thank you. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Item number 18, everyone, it's adjournment. So thank you all, and we will see you again in August.